Thank you. Welcome to the CIC meeting of today, August 8th, 2023 at 5:30 and a little bit of change. Mr. Miller, I'll call us to order. Mr. Miller, would you run through attendance, please?
Yes. Mr. Moravec.
Here.
Mr. Unger.
Here.
Ms. Ulrich.
Here.
Mr. Waller.
Here.
Mr. McElravy.
Here.
And I am here.
And let the record note that Mr. Solman is caught in one of the notable Cincinnati traffic jams and will be with us shortly.
All right. Our first item of business will be the acceptance of the minutes from February the 14th, 2023, which was the last meeting of the CIC.
I've had a chance to review the minutes, so I will motion for approval of the February 14th minutes.
I'll second.
All right. Any discussion for or against? All right. Roll call vote.
Mr. Moravec.
A. Yes.
Okay. Aye.
Aye. Approve.
Mr. Unger.
Yes.
Ms. Ulrich.
Yes.
Mr. Waller.
Yes.
Mr. McElravy.
Yes.
And I am a yes.
All right. Next item under new business. Let me just interject here. We do have missing secretary. Is someone actually now taking minutes?
I am doing that.
Okay. And I know that we can talk about that later, but later doesn't help us if we're missing. So, well, Mr. Miller, wearing many hats. Next item are the financial statements for Q1 and Q2 2023.
I'll ask our treasurer, Mr. McElravy, to run through those.
Very good. So on page 3 of the board packet is probably the most succinct summary of the activity of the CIC this year. This is for the first and second quarters of the year. The opening balance at the first of the year was $73,095.19. The balance at the close of June is $70,083.19. There were 7 transactions in total, almost all of them for the usual expenses of the organization in terms of insurance and things associated with the financial statements for the CIC. One that is probably worth pointing out is transaction number 2. That is a fee that we had to pay to stop payment on a check that was lost in the mail. So that was the first check that is labeled as, or transaction number 1, dated January 3rd, that was voided and then replaced by transaction number 3. And then in the interim, we had the fee to stop the first payment. Everything else is just a regular course of business.
All right. Any questions with regard to the financial statements Q1 and Q2? So, go ahead.
Sorry, before any other questions come, Plattenberg did 3 audits or 4 for us in the.
That's progress payments for the preparation of the financial statements for 2022.
Okay, just want to double check that it's clarified on record what it actually is for.
I know there's all kinds of rules and regulations with regard to this. We don't have this in an interest-bearing account, can we? Are we permitted?
I don't know.
It would be nominal, but revenue streams.
I'd be happy to look into it.
Okay.
The checking account is a nonprofit account, and therefore the fees that were charged to have the account are low, and that's sort of the trade-off for not having something that's interest-bearing. But we certainly can be happy to check in that.
So I think things are so competitive with business checking accounts now that, I mean, those are I think they're free, and you just don't get canceled checks or something. I don't know. I always looking to try to make a dime here, so 70,000 at 1 or 2% is going to be like $1,500, but it's 1,500 more. All right.
I will motion that we go ahead and accept the financial statements for first and second quarter of 2023.
And I'll second that motion. Are there any questions or discussion? All right, roll call vote, please.
If none, Mr. Moravec.
Yes.
Mr. Unger.
Yes.
Ms. Ulrich.
Yes.
Mr. Waller.
Yes.
Mr. McElravy.
Yes.
And I am an aye. Next item of business is a motion to accept the transfer of real property located in Colerain Township and owned by Colerain Township, identified as parcel number 510-0074-035900. So background is that this is a property at 6768 Acre Drive, and a resident recently saw township employees mowing a vacant lot and went over and inquired and said, you know, why are you doing this? Who owns it? And made its way through the process. And he said, I think I would be interested in purchasing it to attach it to my current property if there's any opportunity for such. And so as he brought that to our attention, we did the research on that, found out, yes, we do own it, have no need of keeping this property under the ownership of the township. And so they have transferred it to the C.I.C. And so the first item here, item C, would be a motion to accept that gift from the township.
And is that the property there?
This is it right here, yes, sir.
Oh, I'll buy that.
Good.
I'll motion to accept the transfer of real property located in Colerain Township, known by Colerain Township, identified as parcel number 510-0074-035900.
I'll second.
All right, and Mr. Miller, the plan for this would be then to put it, as we've done with previous items, to put it up for auction or sale or,
That will be the discussion on the next item.
The motion to sell.
Discuss that
Right.
until.
all right? Any other questions?
None from me.
All right, roll call?
All right, Mr. Morbeck,
Yes.
Mr. Unger,
Yes.
Ms. Ulrich,
Yes.
Mr. Wallert,
Yes.
Mr. McElravy.
Yes.
And I am an aye. All right, next item would be a motion to sell 6768 Acre Drive that has now been transferred to the C.I.C. And so in the past, last year, we actually performed this similar process where we had a couple vacant lots that were owned by the C.I.C. and we offered them up as opportunity for somebody to purchase, primarily for infill development. So this property, I believe, is in Northbrook, and so it has an opportunity to build on, or possibly the side yard program would be the other option, as noted in the packet. And the proposal would be to advertise it for sale as a sealed bid, identical to what we did for the other properties, and then close the bids on August the 31st, open those on that day, and then have staff review those proposals and then bring them back to the C.I.C. board on September the 12th with a recommendation for your consideration.
And while you have the floor, can you, anybody who's watching this meeting, tell them how to go about getting the information about getting into
Yes,
a bid situation?
As soon as this is approved by the C.I.C. board, then we will place it on our township's website. Since the C.I.C. does not have a website of its own, we have a C.I.C. section for the township, so that information will be there. I kept a list of all of the inquiries on the previous two sales, and so I'll go back out to them with the information and invite them to consider bidding on this particular property as well, and then try to get the word out every way that we can through our various means of communications, through our website and social media avenues.
All right, I'm going to motion to sell 6768 Acre Drive, parcel number 510-0074-035900 via sealed bids due on August 31st, 2023 at 4 p.m.
I'll second.
All right. Any other discussion?
By the way, an acre's in Groesbeck, not Northbrook.
Oh, sorry.
Just clarification.
I think we should probably advertise it in the legal newspaper for the county, which is the Cincinnati Court Index. I'm sure Attorney Solman would know how to approach that. I mean, I know how to get a hold of them, but I look in that all the time, and there's all sorts of municipalities selling land in there, and that's a legal, that's,
I've seen, our office gets it,
yeah.
I've never actually taken a step to.
And just to make sure we properly legally notice it.
The same as we did the other three, or two.
And my question would be the timeline to close to August 31st. Seems like a short amount of time, but again, just asking the question.
I would probably tend to agree. That discussion was briefly had and settled on that. And so, don't have much comment. I guess we could extend it if we want to.
Can we do like a 30-day from the first posting for sale? Because if it doesn't go into the newspapers or court index till next week, or whenever it goes in, so at least we have 30 days to get bids in.
Okay.
I think would that sound sufficient for the public to have 30 days?
I think so. Again, it's 3 weeks' time and a
Right.
couple weekends in there, and
Right.
it's just my thought.
Well, I'm just thinking by the time it gets out in publication and people
Sure.
can get to it, you're right.
So to clean it up a little bit, I'm going to withdraw my motion to sell 6768 Acre Drive. Parcel number is noted via sealed bids due on August 31st, 2023 at 4 p.m. And introduce an amended motion that reads, motion to sell 6768 Acre Drive, parcel number 510-007403590 via sealed bids due 30 days, due at 4 p.m.
After the first posting for sale.
But I want to make it a business day, though.
Well, we have to get a business day when they're gonna be able to transfer and put it in the,
Due 4 p.m. the first business day after the 30th day from publication.
well, there he goes.
I'll second that motion.
All right. I've got that.
All right, now any discussion with regards to the new motion on the floor?
Thank you for remotioning. And we have a second.
None.
All right, roll call.
Mr. Moravec,
Yes.
Mr. Unger,
Yes.
Ms. Elrich,
Yes,
Mr. Waller,
Yes.
Mr. McElravy,
Yes.
and I am a yes.
okay, thank you.
If I might entertain the board's attention real quick.
Yeah, something's going on here.
So the last time we went through this process, we were able to sell these properties, sell the 2 vacant lots, and this
Oh, the one on Wedding,
is
yes.
what I saw today.
Oh, yay,
This picture,
nice,
so
nice, yes.
2684 Winning is in Northbrook, right at Winning. It's one house down from intersection of Pippin. And so this will come to the market soon, be available for sale, but that is the success of a vacant lot sale.
Oh, did we get anything from the woman that bought the Skyline Acre?
I have not talked to her yet. Shelley Bolden
Yeah,
is the
yeah,
is the builder there.
yeah.
And so I suspect she'd be interested in the Acre Drive property as well.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. The last item that we have under new business is discussion of strategic use of the C.I.C.
Okay. So, CICs are used in a variety of ways. They are deployed by various jurisdictions throughout our region here, I'm sure throughout the state of Ohio. And so I think our intent now is to, to start talking through what options that we might start pursuing in regards to strategic use of the CIC. One of those might be the assembly of properties. So you start looking for strategic purchases where the township would be interested in seeing a particular type of development. Maybe it's a mixed use. I'm gonna go out on a limb right now and say we probably don't have enough to buy Northgate Mall. But if we did, that might be a reason to deploy the C.I.C. as an entity that could assemble properties and then try to create an environment where a developer would come in and catch that same vision of what we wanted to see in that particular area where we had assembled those properties and sell those off. So I would be remiss if I didn't ask Mr. McElravy to discuss some of the experiences he may have had at the city of Cincinnati and maybe some other information that he's seen useful with C.I.C.
Sure.
Thank you.
So there's a couple of really powerful advantages to managing property through a community improvement corporation rather than the township doing it itself. The first is that any liability, whether it's environmental or something to do with title or any financial issues that a property may have, when it is held by the C.I.C, what that does is shield the books of the township itself from exposure to any of those kinds of liability. The other thing is that it opens up the possibility for the pursuit of grant funding that the township would not be eligible to pursue on its own. This is a model that was used incrementally in a number of places, but most of my experience was with Cincinnati, and a lot of that had to do with assembling, basically buying up the business districts in Walnut Hills, and there's been a tremendous revitalization along McMillan and Gilbert as a result of that. Similar situation in Madisonville, along Madison Road in their historic business district. And probably, the closest to home here in College Hill with the redevelopment of North Bend and Hamilton, and then also along Hamilton Avenue. It's actually a really long business district, but it's hard work. It takes patience. It does involve some expense in terms of carrying property for an extended period of time, but it's a very effective tool for making sure that the outcome that we are seeking as a township, where we have a great deal more control over what will happen with the property as a result of having ownership and the opportunity to really dictate any private redevelopment that happens as a result.
Thank you.
So with the level of funding that we have in the account, there isn't a lot of opportunity to pursue, I think, with that amount. Okay, that's a given, right? So one suggestion clearly would have to be, if we wanted to pursue C.I.C. strategic deployment, there would have to be a commitment from the township to help fund, number one, that C.I.C. account, and then number two, develop guidelines that say if we are going to pursue some properties for strategic compilation of those together, some parcels, then in assembling them, we would come up with guidelines, what we're looking for, how much money we might need, and then sources and put the potential for grant applications as well. So that's, I think, at a high level where we're thinking right now.
Okay.
Any comments?
And we will be having 3 more sales between the firehouses and the old Colerain property. So we are going to put some more of those properties in there for funding, correct?
Certainly the one that we are proposing on Acre Drive, that is clearly going to go in. Once again, don't know how much that's going to be. I'm
Yeah.
confident it's going to be something that is not going to
Right.
bankroll this project. I think the previous sales were both under $10,000.
Right, so, but we have,
They're just small vacant lots.
I think it's a fine use because I have no interest in maintaining small parcels like what's on Acre.
Right.
Occasionally, land either falls into a tax problem or a ownership problem, and to me, that's a good way to, because the township absorbs the cost of, you said, cutting the grass earlier and other maintenance on the property, so I'm fine using the CIC to dispose of properties and to assemble groups of properties for various projects.
I think one thing that I might suggest then would be for Township Development Department staff to kind of pull together, even with the chamber, and look at Colerain map and start looking at key areas along commercial corridors and see where we could most easily start assembling some property that might be strategic. That sounds like something that the
Great
board's
idea.
interested in, and
All
then
right.
bring those back in a report.
So, I'm going to be a little bit of the oddball out here on this. I think there's two competing ideas here, because we do also have the idea of keeping reserve funds. So anything, the example you gave with the interest, for example, could be something that would also fund the reserve fund. I think the most powerful thing that a township has for development is a CIC. However, I guess my concern is, and I don't have an answer. I'm giving you a question I don't have an answer for. What are you building towards? So, for example, I've talked a number of times about experiential things. Like recently, I was down in Georgia, and there's a small town there that builds everything around the railroad. They have a railroad park. They have railroad murals. They have a day thing you could take. Not to say that Colerain would be a railroad, but I think this needs to be within a grander plan, a thematic plan. Otherwise, there's an opportunity cost of using this money just to buy land, or buy items to buy items, and it costs perhaps the reserve fund. And the other thing is that, College Hill is lower hanging fruit. I mean, it was a lot easier for them because it's smaller. At Mount Healthy, I think their experience has been a little bit different. And maybe they're just kind of in the infancy stages because they tried to replicate the same thing. So I'm not saying I'm against it. I'm saying that what's the vision from it? To me, a vision is not let's go get property and try to what are we turning it into? What are we trying to create? Because I think ultimately the communities that thrive in the next 50 to 100 years are going to be communities that offer that type of thing. People always use Reading as an example with the bridal district. Who would have ever known? But that bridal district, it's pretty strong economic driver of that area. So I've just given you more problems than answers. but I'm not against it, but I in the back of my mind, I have this reserve fund so that we could get ahead on some of the large capital projects that we have. And also, if it's focused towards a goal, and not a goal being a better community, a goal is what do we envision? And we still, we still really lack that. I thought that the marketing reporter would give us some idea on that. We still don't know. We're that athletic team that doesn't know if we're hitters or pitchers or defense or offense, I guess. And that's probably because we're such a disparate group. In Colerain, there's many different peoples. So I guess my challenge is, hey, that's fine, but let's work for what that vision will look like.
And David, I would ask also, do we have a map or do we have a listing yet of the vacant commercial properties available, either by size or by geography?
We do have a subscription to CoStar, which is a service that provides us with a continual listing of availabilities. And so that's always at the ready, that we subscribe through
Those are properties that are available, but not necessarily all the vacant properties, correct? If it's not on the market, if it's not up for sale, it's just empty, the owner has it, it's not listed in there, correct?
That's right.
CoStar is just the commercial real estate division, so what he, yeah, so we do have a list of vacant properties also throughout the township that we are,
Yes, we know which residential and commercial properties are
Right, yes,
vacant
yes.
that are registered with the township.
And I would like to see that partnership with the chamber and the C.I.C. so that we can all work on that. And I know that the time is growing late. Are there any, I think we have 2 more minutes before we have to call. Are there any last-second comments?
well, there's a citizen's address, so.
Okay, are there any citizens here to address the C.I.C.? Seeing and hearing none, are there any motions at this time?
I motion we adjourn today's meeting of the Community Improvement Corporation at, whatever time it is, Matt, 5:57.
All right,
Second that.
Okay.
all right, we have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
All right, Mr. Morbeck.
Yes.
Mr. Unger.
Yes.
Ms. Ulrich.
Yes.
Mr. Waller.
Yes.
Mr. McElravy.
Yes.
And I am a
Okay.
yes.
All right, and we'll hold those ideas for the next meeting. I didn't want to cut Mr. Morvick short on that, but now that I pronounced his name correctly for the first time, thank you.
It's officially 6 o'clock, time for the August 8th regular meeting of the Board of Trustees. Mr. Baker, would you?
Ms. Orich?
Yes, here.
Mr. Unger?
Here.
Mr. Waller?
Here.
And Mr. Jeff Wetbach is sick today, and Jeff McElravy is going to lead us here today. Is there a need for executive session?
Good evening, Board. Yes, I would ask for a motion that the Board go into executive session in accordance with Ohio Revised Code, Section 121.22G2, to consider the purchase of property for public purposes, and also in accordance with Ohio Revised Code, Section 121.22G3, to discuss pending or imminent litigation with the township attorney.
I'll motion to enter executive session based upon those Ohio Sunshine Rule exceptions as stated by Mr. McElravy.
I'll second.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
We will come back about 7 o'clock. Okay, it's 7:02 for the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees. Do we have anything to report from executive session?
No, ma'am, no, we don't.
Okay, do we do roll call? Okay,
Ms. Orich?
here.
Mr. Unger?
Here.
Mr. Waller?
Here.
Okay, we can stand up and do the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
One
one
nation.
nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And for our moment of meditation, I'd like us all to keep in our thoughts and respect and prayers our police and firefighters for what they do for our township. Thank you. Okay, number 5 on the agenda is approval of minutes.
Thank you, Board. You were previously sent 2 sets of minutes, and I would ask for approval of those this evening. The first would be from the special meeting that was held on July 25th, 2023.
I motion we approve the minutes from the special meeting that was held on July 25th, 2023.
I'll second that.
Any discussions?
None.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you, Board. Secondly was the same day, the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees, also on July 25th, 2023.
I motion we approve the minutes of the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees from July 25th, 2023.
Second.
Any discussions?
None.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, number 6, we have a presentation.
Madam President, there are no presentations this
Okay.
evening.
Okay, number 7, then the public hearing.
Yes, so at the last Board of Trustees meeting, the board opened a public hearing on case ZA 2023-09, a major modification amendment to case ZA 2005-006, preliminary development plan, final development plan, and zoning map amendment from zoning R3 to PDB for 10345 and 10329 Colerain Avenue.
So I'll motion to reopen, or not reopen, to resume.
progress.
Resume the progress of the public hearing. And I don't know then if we need to have additional, if we have to swear in witnesses again.
Yes, because I think there'll be new people here.
New
I
people,
think.
okay.
Just to be on the safe side, would swear everybody in.
But I have a motion to resume the public hearing, ZA 22309, major modification amendment to case ZA 2005-006, PDP, FDP, and zoning map amendment from R3 to PDB, 10345 and 10329 Colerain Avenue.
I will second it.
Okay. Are we going to open the public hearing then?
No,
Ms.
we're gonna
Orich?
vote.
Vote, yeah.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
And at this point, anyone who's going to testify or provide testimony, please stand and raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do. All right, thank you. Please be sure to state your name and address before you provide your testimony.
Yeah.
There we go. All right, so my name's David Miller, Development Director for Colerain Township. So I'm going to provide just a quick history and just go through the application timeline for you to tell you where we started and then where we are tonight. And then we'll have the applicants that will come forward and make a presentation as well. And then we'll have time to hear from the public. So application timeline started in November 22. Applicant met with the development department for a pre-development discussion. They had just a variety of questions. At these meetings, they generally don't have a tremendous amount of plans that are put together. They ask questions about potential locations, a gas station, convenience store. They ask about sewer availability. Are we going to be able to connect here or not? Where's the closest connection? Zoning amendment process, timelines. And then didn't hear from them until shortly before the June 20 zoning commission meeting. They had made application, and so got on the agenda, and that's when the zoning commission took up ZA 2023-09. At this public hearing, they invited the public to come and express their thoughts and concerns about the project. The staff recommendation was to table and continue the application to allow for the applicant to have discussions with the staff, development department, particularly as it related to the comprehensive plan and the zoning resolution. And so Instead, the zoning commission decided not to table, but they voted 4-1 to recommend a denial of the proposed major modification and zoning map amendment. Their prerogative to do so. And so, as you know, then July the 11th, Board of Trustees held their scheduled public hearing on this case. Once again, residents, interested parties came, shared their thoughts on the project. The applicant at that time certainly heard concerns or requested. They requested a continuation. That letter was provided to you in the last Board of Trustees meeting. They wanted to have time to meet with neighborhood that is abutting, particularly on the backside of this project, and to revise site plans as needed and based on the comments. So at that July the 11th meeting, as you know, Board of Trustees took no action on the application. They voted to continue the public hearing to August the 8th, and that's where we are today. July the 18th, applicant met with the Development Department to discuss a couple things, recommended changes that would align the project with the comp plan and the zoning resolution to address residents' concerns that would have been raised at the previous 2 public hearings. And then later that day, applicant held a neighborhood engagement meeting at the project site there at Clyde Mower, and residents again showed up and they listened, had a good vigorous debate and discussion. July 31st, then based on resident concerns, the applicant submitted revised preliminary development plan that includes these bullets. So the changes have been made to improve site drainage, reduce stormwater runoff onto adjoining properties, and they'll discuss that and show representations of that a little later. They added landscaping and buffering, expanded the setbacks. They relocated underground storage tanks away from the adjoining residences, and they have extended the no disturbance line an additional 5 feet for the existing vegetation and tree line along the southern property line. August the 4th, the applicant met once again with the Development Department staff to finalize the PDP changes and to ensure they were in compliance with comprehensive plan and the zoning resolution. And today is where we are. So we are continuing the public hearing for you to review the revised PDP. Here, once again, continue the public hearing with residents and interested parties. So I would like to call up Jay Adams, who represents a developer with Unicorp, and let me get his. PowerPoint. Come up with that momentarily. Jay, and then you bring up.
Jay Adams, Unicorp Development, 10618 Boca Point Drive, Orlando, Florida. Well, first of all, thank you for allowing us to come up this evening and present. Need to get some dirty laundry out of the way. I, on behalf of our company, sincerely apologize for missing the last public hearing. That's not how we conduct business. We've done this a couple times before, and that was a misunderstanding between my staff and my engineering company. So I want to apologize to the public, as we've done back at the a couple weeks ago when we met at the property, and then formally apologize to the trustee. So we listened to what the community said, and we understand, and we heard them loud and clear. And as we indicated earlier, Mr. Miller, we've made several changes to the plans that we believe has addressed several of the concerns that the community has. And we're going to demonstrate today with the plans that we have and some of the elevations that we've developed, addressing both the noise. We're prepared to put a sound barrier wall up. We're prepared to put an extensive amount of landscaping up that will shield the property. There were even concerns and talks about some of the little TV monitors that are on the pumps, and making sure that they're not on at certain periods of the evening so it doesn't disrupt the noise carry. We're going to address traffic with signalizing. We're going to address the drainage on the property. So many of the community members up here complain about drainage. We're going to show how we're taking the drainage that's currently on the property and it's going to be discharged, so it's not going to affect adjacent property members. So with that being said, I'd like to just take one quick moment, introduce the president of the company, Chuck Whitall, president of Unicorp. If you would come up, Chuck, and say a couple words.
Hi, good evening. Chuck Whitall, Unicorp National Developments, 7940 Via Delagio Way, Orlando, Florida, 32819. I just want to say we're excited to be here. We're excited throughout this entire market to bring Wawa here. And Wawa, people often refer to it as a gas station, but I always tell people Wawa is it's a restaurant that has gas pumps. It's so much more if you've ever been to one. If you look at their following on Facebook or any of the venues that they're on Instagram, they've got so many people who follow them. There's been weddings at Wawa's, which it's hard to believe I wouldn't have my wedding there. But they do all sorts of special stuff. They're active with the community. They're active with the police department. They're active with the kids' baseball games and donate to the local community. And we're happy to be here and invest in your community. And we think you're going to love Wawa. We love them. We've got them all over Florida, and we're doing a bunch of them here. And they're a great community partner. Wawa, speak in a few minutes, but I really think it's going to be a great addition to the community. And every time we put one in, everybody's happy that they're there. So we're happy to be here tonight. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Patrick Warnament. I live in Westchester, Ohio, but our corporate address is 260 West Baltimore Pike, Wawa, Pennsylvania, 19063. Since we're new here, we wanted to give you some background on the company and kind of the story, because it is very interesting. As you can see up here, we are much more than a convenience store. Wawa started off as a foundry many years ago and then turned into a dairy, then a food store, and then sometime in the 1990s finally started selling fuel. So it's an amazing story. You go in the store, you see a kitchen. Very different than a typical convenience store. And fuel pricing is always, we have to be competitive. But we'll talk a little bit more about community devotion a little further in here. This kind of is a little bit of what I just talked about there. You see, the foundry used to make fire hydrants and other things. And the dairy's still there in Pennsylvania, so that's an interesting thing. I've been there once. It's incredible. So very neat story. The Wood family still owns part of the company, so they are still involved. And we've got just over 1,000 stores in the United States right now. So this is sort of that breakdown where you see Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Maryland, Florida obviously is very big now. And all the stores are corporate owned. We don't do any franchising at all. So we own every single one of them. This is our purpose, fulfilling lives every day for people that come to the store and the associates that work at the store. Day brighteners, this is just some neat pictures of different stores. One thing, a benefit that they offer to the employees, we are an ESOP, an employee-owned company, and once a year, they're given stock. They don't pay for it. So that's a very nice thing. So the people that work at that store will be part owners, which is a terrific benefit. 6 core values, I won't read them, but these are things that are talked about constantly. I've only been with the company since March, and I hear a lot about this. So it's something they take very seriously. This is kind of an introduction slide. And you can see in the top left corner there, I will admit it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, but there are weddings from time to time at Wawa's because people are just fanatic about it. You can see over towards the right there's someone with a Wawa tattoo. Again, not something I personally would do, but just kind of shows kind of the cult-like following that we have in the areas that we are. And these are just kind of some statistics about how much business we do every day and kind of the volume of the hoagies, coffee, everything that people love about coming to our stores. We do operate a charitable foundation, which is this breaks down a lot of what we do. $135 million invested in the communities that we operate in, which is obviously very significant. So that is certainly something we'll be doing in Ohio and everywhere else. And people basically submit an application to the foundation, it's reviewed, and then they're either awarded funding or not. So we think that's a tremendous thing that I don't think any of our competitors do. And these are some other examples of in-kind donations with food and other things. On the East Coast, anytime there's hurricanes, tornadoes, anything, Wawa's the last store to close and the first one to open back up, and is there to donate food and other things to affected people. So these are basically our main selling points. I mean, fresh food is phenomenal. We obviously don't have any here yet, and when I go to Orlando for my training and such, we eat at Wawa all the time, and you see people come and go and not necessarily even buy gas at all. They come there, get a coffee, eat, and go back to work. So it's much, much different than most of our competition. Oop, I think I skipped one there. Yeah, this slide basically covers more about the fresh food. Like I say, when you walk in, you see a kitchen. It's very clean and nice, so that's nice. Fresh first, everything we do is freshly made. You see a coffee station, all different flavors and such, so it's very neat. Built to order. Everything's done on a touch screen. They prepare your food, and it's done. So we do have some ready-made things. The Sizzly option down there in the corner is more of a quick, thing that's already made when you get there. These are just some other photos of smoothies and other things that we serve. So the food and beverage part of our business is bigger than fuel, so it's, really the main reason people come to our stores. And this is just basically more data about the amount of coffee that we serve, hoagies that we serve, so on and so forth. So this shows a lot of pictures of our fresh made food, salads, all kinds of different options for fresh made food and coffee. Pizza is new to us. I think in Florida they're doing this now. This is something that is very new for Wawa, so that is a good thing. And so dinner time, breakfast and lunch have always been very solid, so that they're working more towards having dinner type food as well. So that's sort of a new thing. Free ATMs, we don't have service charges on those, and the air pumps are free as well, so those are kind of nice little things to have. We do have curbside assistance, mobile app. We do catering, which again, it's probably something you don't hear from convenience stores too often, but you go through the website, create a catering order like you would from anywhere else for hoagies for large groups, desserts, any number of things. And I think that's the end. I'd like to have our engineering company, Kimley Horn, come up and explain some of the plan changes that we've made after the citizen input that we heard and things that we think made the plan a lot better.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Bill Skiba. I'm with Kimley Horn. I'm at 7965 North High Street, Suite 200 in Columbus, Ohio. I'm the licensed civil engineer of record that will be working on this project. I'm joined here by my colleague, Mr. Jacob Campbell, also a licensed engineer with Kimley Horn. Wanted to run through a few of the site updates that we had made, but first expressing some gratitude to y'all for allowing us to continue, meet with neighbors, hear concerns, and then reflect that on our updated plans. Touching base on a few of the high-level items that we felt were really prominent in addressing some of these concerns, namely the tanks being relocated from the planned use south, the right side of the page is the south side, but relocating the tanks from the south adjacency away from any of the residences centering the site. We've pushed the site, which was previously about 10 foot off the property line. That's showing up close to 30 now. In doing that, we were able to pull where we're tying our grades out 5 foot off the property line. So per our design, we will remain untouched a 5-foot strip of existing vegetation, trees, brush, etc., between where we will be disturbing, and where ultimately we'll be tying out. This plan does a good job of showing the limits of which that we will be disturbing. I apologize in the distance, it might be hard to make out there along the right side of the page, but we're 5 foot off the property line where we're tying out any disturbance. Excuse me. In addition to that, we've also pulled back more significantly as you extend further west down the property. You can see we're not touching near half up to where the adjacent residences are, and that will remain untouched with the existing vegetation remaining. We're providing 43 green giants adjacent to the south side of the property. At installation, those will be approximately 15 foot in height, fully developed upwards of 50 with a span of 15 foot. That will be in addition to a screening fence that will be proposed around the perimeter of the development that will provide both a visual and sound screen along with security. There's an existing fence that borders the west side of the property. We're going to tie our proposed fence into that and actually cut off the back side of the property from any access into where the basin is going to be and where we're going to be leaving the undeveloped brush and trees. This is just a shot of what those would look like with approximate height. Moving into some of the proposed improvements as it relates to the drainage and discharge from the site, I want to focus on the southeast side of the property. You can see it's approximately 1.4 acres of runoff that's directly sheet flowing towards those 4 parcels to the southeast. In proposed conditions, we're going to be cutting that down by over half an acre. That's going to be detained on site with on-site detention, treated for both quality and quantity concerns. It will be discharged into existing storm sewer infrastructure within the right-of-way, of which we're evaluating options to improve. Wanted to show a couple visuals of a cross-section of the site. There's fairly significant grade change as you extend down that property line. So one side is going to be higher, you extend further, the site's going to be lower. So you can see here situated the relation of the property line, the trees, fence, road, and building. This shows where the grade is more close. Something to note as well, the initial design had included a retaining wall as part of this. Pulling the site off allowed us to remove that and focus more purely on the screening elements of the wall itself. This is a better shot of the potential wall, or fence. Touching base briefly on the roadway improvements, we are working to secure approval from ODOT, working through the final comments that they've provided on that. We've already secured county approval on our traffic study, which recommends improvements to the signalized intersection, along with the storage and turn lanes that you see on the plan. We will be proposing a right turn lane to provide storage heading southbound. We are proposing additional paving to expand Old Colerain to the north to provide space for capacity for a turn lane south into the site. We've included some renderings to show before versus after. This is ultimately going to lead into some new photometric information that we're providing. One of the benefits to pulling the site off the property line was that it relocated the pole placement, which has allowed for us to achieve 0-foot candle levels adjacent to all property lines. This heat map does a better job of indicating that. So with that, that's all I had. Just wanted to thank y'all again for hearing us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Do we want to have the publics come up and speak now? Okay. I'm going to assume everybody on Rayanne was sworn in, and if I call your name, as if that's who you're coming here to speak with us. Mandy Blackburn? Yes, yes. Because you're not coming here for the citizens' address, you're here for the public hearing, correct? That's when it,
Good evening.
maybe.
So my name's Mandy Blackburn. I live at. I'll just move this out of your way. Thank you. Yep, you better hold on to those. They disappeared last time, right? So my name's Mandy Blackburn, and I live at 4136 Rayan Drive. I'm second house down on the right. Some of my concerns have been noise pollution, light pollution, safety, crime, and the health hazards. I'm not going to go into detail about all of those, even though some feel that with this revised plan, those issues have been addressed. I feel that they have not been. I would like to talk about things that cannot be controlled, such as the people. We cannot control if they obey the law. So if the best predictor for the future is the past, it's safe to say no matter how much traffic light control there is, they won't obey the law. They will continue to speed, run red lights, school bus stops, and make U-turns. I have heard you, the trustees, comment on how people on Colerain Avenue just run the red lights. This is not a maybe, this is a fact. We have all seen it. So to add a whole bunch of cars to a notoriously bad intersection just doesn't sound like the smartest thing to do. In fact, on the very same day and time as our meeting at Clyde's, there was an accident at the top of Rayanne and Colerain. We can't control how loud people play their stereos or rev their engines, and although we have laws, again, we can't control people. On a regular basis, I watch people pull up to Speedway, open their car door, and throw all their trash on the ground. Or driving down Colerain Avenue, open their window and just toss it out onto the street. More cars on Colerain means more people throwing their garbage out. It breaks my heart to think that I will no longer be able to allow my grandchildren to have campouts and movie nights in their backyard due to safety concerns, that their childhood will dramatically change, that they will no longer be able to walk down to their great-grandma's house because of increased traffic and safety concerns. My neighbors and I will no longer be able to enjoy our family get-togethers or just quiet moments in the backyard watching the wildlife. It makes me sad to think about all of the wildlife that will be displaced. My house may not be perfect, but it is perfect for my family and myself. My husband and I have worked very hard to be able to have this house and to be able to raise our kids and grandkids in a safe and caring neighborhood. It's overwhelming to me to think that just because someone has more money, they can come in and throw everyone's lives and life dreams into total chaos. It just doesn't seem very fair. For 30 years, we've called 4136 Rayanne our home and Colerain Township our community. Our children and grandchildren attend and currently attend Colerain Elementary. We support our schools, our local sports teams, the businesses, the police, and fire, and now myself, my husband, my family, and my neighbors are asking for your support. This is not personal for Wawa. They do this all the time. For my community, it's very personal. I'm asking Wawa to compromise and choose one of the other 4 locations that they previously looked at in Colerain, one that would better be suited for our community. I don't think this is asking too much of a company that claims to be family-oriented. Please think of the 30-plus families this will impact negatively. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tony Blackburn?
Evening.
Good evening. My name is Tony Blackburn. I live at 4136 Rand Drive. That was my wife. Summed it up again really well. I am opposed to this gas station, restaurant, what have you. It's just going to bring just total chaos to us. They're advertising now that it's a restaurant. So I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning every day to go to work. So at midnight, I'm going to have the party crowd come into their restaurant with their loud stereos, what have you, thumping, lights, what, by the way, that rendering of the night is just unrealistic, in my opinion. I deliver to these gas stations. I know what their lighting is, and I know what all these gas stations / restaurants are all about. I deal with it every day, and I don't want it in my backyard. It's just gonna lower my property value. I don't know what else we can do. We hope that you all are on our side, you know? We don't know what else, we don't know what route we can do. I'm playing for the end game right now, planning for the end game. And if this thing goes through, my property value is just gonna plummet. And I'm not gonna get out what I put in it. I've been 20 plus years I've been paying on this house. And now I'm finally getting it to where it should be. And now this is their proposed, and it's gonna be wrecked, and I'm not gonna get out what I put into it. I just hope you all listen to us. And not to mention the sound barrier walls. Now in the wintertime, when all the leaves get off the trees, instead of looking at the nice trees, now I get to look at a 15-foot wall and some type of fencing. When I go to sell my house, how do I explain that? I mean, that cuts down the people that are interested in my house if I decide to sell it. That cuts it down dramatically. And so I'm begging you, please vote this thing down. We appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, Sherry Schneider.
Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Sherry Schneider, 4381 Rayanne. Once again, I'm here to express my extreme opposition to this project. In preparation for this meeting, I read through the agenda packet, and I was highly disappointed to see the staff of the zoning office stating that the revised plan substantially addresses our concerns. This is simply not true. I would like to remind you of our concerns. As I stated at the last meeting, the major traffic safety issues, critical health concerns, destroying a local wildlife area by eliminating the mature buffer area that currently exists, and the financial impact to the homeowners by the devaluation of their properties. In addition, I cited several reasons their project does not meet the goals and objectives set forth in Colerain's economic development plan. Those issues are still true, even with the new proposal. Listed is to ensure new improvements complement the character and form of the surrounding areas. Although the glossy, enhanced photos they provided are impressive, the key word here is enhanced. They do not match the detailed drawings from the developer or the statements made by the men sent to represent Wawa. The drawings show the mature trees will be removed to regrade the property and replaced, which was confirmed at the community involvement meeting. The existing tree line, say behind the Blackburn's home, that is stated to remain undisturbed, is generous of them considering they're on the Blackburn side of the existing fence line. So again, impressive photo enhancing, showing a dimly lit station surrounded by lush, mature tree-lined lot is enticing but untrue. And the second issue that was listed as critical was to facilitate better access management, including the exploration of alternative traffic patterns that improve both traffic flow and safety. This needs no explanation, but I guess adding the turning lane will be a nice area for the many auto accidents to pull off into. Landscaping and expanding, I'm sorry. The mobility analysis states you are to incorporate responsible growth principles which ensure development occurs in a manner that is financially solvent for the township. Again, another brownfield within this area in a few years is not financially solvent for the township. As to the revisions, of the 4 noted by the zoning staff, 2 were among our concerns. The removing of the mature trees and wildlife area is considered addressed by adding landscaping and expanded setbacks. Per the landscaping legend in their drawings, adding a 2.5-gallon sized sapling tree hardly compares to the removal of trees that date back over 100 years, and the main additional setback is in the front of the station. The relocating of the underground tanks is something, but it does not address the health risks associated with living next to a fuel center. Those documented hazards include ground level ozone, groundwater hazards, exposure to chemicals such as benzene and toluene, and possible leaks from the gas storage tanks. All of these factors can result in anything from lung issues to kidney, liver, and brain damage. According to the World Health Organization, continuous exposure to these chemicals has been found to cause a number of cancers. The US EPA echoes these concerns and recommend that schools regularly be screened if they're located within 1,000 feet of a gas station. When speaking with Wawa, I was dismissed and told we have safety features in place that won't let that happen. Personally, I work for the world's largest consumer goods manufacturer. We have top-of-the-line safety features in place in our plants, yet still accidents do happen and deaths do occur. Even the most current safety precautions can be breached by things such as the daily blasting from Rumpke. I realize my opinion does not match the excitement the city is feeling about Wawa coming to our area. Referencing the 2 other announced potential sites in our city, Liberty Township and Union Township, Wawa is repurposing 2 unproductive, deteriorating properties. Both of these locations are currently zoned for business. The location at Colerain and Struble will not only need a major zoning change, the property is currently productive and thriving. I challenge you to work with Wawa to find another location within the township that would not only rejuvenate a blighted location, it would uplift the area with a thriving new business. This would not only be a benefit to the community by aligning with the development plans, it would be a huge factor in community relations for Wawa. Otherwise, if approving this project is more beneficial to you than the detriment of existing properties and families, then the township as a whole loses. Although my opinion is against this location, I'm not the only one. A poll created on a Colerain Township Facebook site asked people, do you want to see a Wawa at Colerain and Struble? The outcome being 37% were for, 63% against. And while seeing other social media articles with comments both for and against, the following post caught my attention. A resident stating, I am from Cincinnati and live in Virginia. These things are everywhere. Good hoagies, free ATMs, clean bathrooms. Just a heads up, there will be late night fights and shootings, LOL. Another concern for the adjacent residents. Now, in all fairness, I have nothing against Wawa or what it represents. I want to rally behind them and welcome them into our community, provided that their presence is aligned with the stated goals of the township and it does not encroach on the health, safety, and quality of life of our families. We understand past decisions have been made in favor of the business community over residential concerns, specifically because the existence of that business in the community predated ours. We knew what was here when we decided to invest in this particular community. So all we are asking is that the residents of the community receive that same consideration. The majority of the homes on Rayanne and Old Colerain predate this request by over 65 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Benjamin Miller.
Evening.
My name is Benjamin Miller. I live at 4228 Rayan Drive. Forgive me if you've heard any of this before, but due to my job requirements, I'm not typically available for this particular meeting and missed the last one. First, let me say I have nothing against Wawa. That comment referencing Virginia. I used to live in Virginia. I'm very familiar with Wawa. It seems like a fine company, but they have no business building quite literally in my backyard. If they would like to buy out the Speedway across the street, I'd be happy to support that. It's already there. We already deal with the challenges that location brings. Also, to speak to the endeavor of building a gas station, there's actually a gas station being built down the street from the zoo, and it has been stopped dead in its tracks for nearly 3 months. I don't want that to happen in my backyard. Speaking of, all the in and out traffic, most people have alluded to this. It's a very busy corner. It actually goes from 55 miles an hour to 35, like at that intersection. So I'm concerned with having an increased amount of traffic in and out of there. We're just going to have more accidents and possibly more deaths. As a motorcycle rider, I know a lot of motorcycles like to use this road because it's pretty open. There's not a lot of in and out traffic, and I think that's going to put a lot of motorcyclists at high risk. Speedway currently, like I said, is a stone's throw away across the street. It's never too busy. It's already open 24/7, so I'm not sure how bringing in another 24/7 gas station is really gonna, bring in more revenue, because, their main competition doesn't even keep their store busy. So, speaking to noise and trash concerns, I'm especially concerned about this in the winter because that tree line and vegetation line, it's not going to do much in the winter. We hear the highway, we hear Speedway, we hear Lowe's, you name it, we can hear it in the winter. And that's being, probably a solid mile from the highway and everything else. Again, it's a 24/7 business. The security lights, I too kind of had to laugh at that proposed image. I just don't see it realistic. And the biggest concern I have is honestly that image shines down on the top of the structure. So you can see the lights kind of radiating from above the gas stations. But when you're actually like standing, level with the surface, how much of that light pollution is going to come? When you look at the drawings of this map, that fence at the very back quite literally runs into the middle of our backyard. So we're going to get a lot of light pollution. There's not enough trees, vegetation, a somewhat see-through 15-foot fence or whatever it's proposed to be. That's not going to stop that light. Those gas station lights are, 2-3 stories tall. So again, the green giant trees, they're not going to provide any privacy for years, if ever. Additionally, what happens if the diseases that have ravaged a few other evergreens in our neighborhood get a hold of those trees? Are they going to replace a mature 20, 30, 50-foot tree? I highly doubt it. And then it's going to take another, 20 years for it to get to a size that might provide some privacy. The fence and barrier that are proposed, I'm going to be honest, I did not hear a height on that, but I don't think it's going to provide much of any barrier. Additionally, there's plenty of police officers in the room. I'm sure they could attest if this store or any of its patrons have a crime committed against them, the first place those people are going to run is over that fence and into my backyard. You did hear them say in their presentation that Wawa's a huge thing. People get married there, which kind of blows my mind. So it's not just a gas station. This is something that's going to be very disruptive. And I don't think it should be disturbing the community that is going to be quite literally right behind it. I know there's some proposal, I think at the very first meeting, about them bringing possibly like sewer into the neighborhood. I think most people here have septic systems that they aren't having an issue with. Ours actually just got replaced when we bought our house, $50,000. So I don't really want to drop any more money on tying into a sewer system. We have dogs. That's part of the reason we bought our house. You know, there's a lot of people here who've been in their homes for 15, 20, 30 years. We've been in our home for about 2. We bought it because of the privacy, because of the yard, because of that nature it brings, and ultimately, in some ways, for our dogs. And we rely on that tree line to have that privacy, to keep our dogs in. And if I have to put a fence back there to keep my dogs from running somewhere else or going after somebody that might be on the other side, that's going to cost me at least $15,000, probably more, because those were estimates pre-pandemic. You know, there's some concerns about water runoff as far as like oil, gas, all that stuff that we know sits on the asphalt of gas stations. Some additional concerns, they have this retention pond. What are they going to do to address like bugs and mosquitoes that are going to obviously increase? I mean, that's a huge retention pond. I don't think they're going to be paying my bill to treat my yard for mosquitoes. As far as, you know, security concerns, Lowe's already has multiple security lights with cameras. I can only assume they're issued by the police department. I honestly don't quite know, but, you know, to address some of the traffic concerns, people already turn around all up and down our road. There's just somebody even at the end of the street that parks at the edge of his driveway just so people stop doing it. And I think with this change, that's only going to keep happening, if not more, because people are going to need to get, you know, turned around the other way. So they're going to come down our street, turn around, go back through the light, and it's just going to increase overall traffic. And I've already had some property damage to my driveway. The skirt's been damaged. I've had lights run over, and I don't really want to keep having to deal with that damage. Lastly, again, we bought the house for the privacy and the tranquility that our yard brings. And I've already invested heavily in our backyard, like thousands of dollars in our backyard. And as an ICU nurse, that's my stress relief. No wall is going to suppress the noise enough to bring that comfort and tranquility back to my yard. So I know it's late. I appreciate your time and patience in hearing our concerns.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ben Brandenburg? Okay.
Evening.
Ben Bravender, 4598 Rayan Drive. I feel like I'm about to make a lot of people very upset. So looking through the site plans throughout the day, I work for a large aviation company. Had a lot of engineers in my facility take a look at it today. Compared to what it was, it's significantly better. Do I feel like there's another revision of this? Absolutely. This could be much better. But at least Wawa, the engineering team, is listening to what we've had to say. Couple things, issues with it is the fence that's proposed with it is a 6-foot chain link fence. That's going to rust out in a couple years. It'd be better if it was a wooden slat fence, something like that, something that would actually absorb some noise if that was to go. To address one of the comments, my father's actually a landscaper of 35 years. The arborvitae does not lose leaves during the winter, so it'll stay green. Couple other things was I'm really glad to see that they did add a turn lane into the property, the right-hand turn, but that's still, I'm at the end of Rayan Drive, so we've had some really doozy things stuck down there. We've had an 18-wheeler stuck at the end of the street, so that it gets really bad. So I feel like this is really going to bring up an opportunity for the township, residents of Rayan, and ODOT to really address the signage visibility issue at the end of Rayan, to where right now the only sign that's on Rayan is a no outlet. You can't see it until you pass it. If there was something we can put up actually on the light poles, I know that's an ODOT owned item, but if we can put something up there that says dead end instead of a no outlet, because it's an abrupt stop, it is a dead end. I own the property at the end of the street also, and that's been damaged by people driving off. We actually had a hit and run there in 2018 where the gentleman drove off almost a 30-foot cliff at the end of the road. Yeah, so I had to go to court that day and lost a day's worth of pay. So that's a whole nother story. But I feel like this project, if you approve it, if you deny it, I still think that this has brought to light the whole issue of fixing with ODOT Township residents, the 35-mile-an-hour speed limit. Right, it starts at the intersection, addressing the signage at the end of the street, the overhang lights, making the end of the street a little bit more visible. I mean, the Ray Ann sign, if you guys drive up there at all, it's all mangled up in the corner. You have no clue what it is until if you look at it, you have to be looking at it. So I do feel like this is better. I feel like there could be one more revision of this that really hammers it home if we do approve it, or if you all approve it. I do think that if this is the lesser of all the evils of things to be built there, I mean, Rumpke could buy it tomorrow and put trash on it for all we know. But I mean, it's never going to be a park. Cly, the whole family, they're not going to just donate it. It's a business, so they're going to sell it to make money. They want to retire. I get it, fine with it, but I think we just need to figure out the final game plan here of hammering out with Wawa, the engineering team, developers, a final plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Jill Kiger?
Good evening.
My name is Jill Kiger. I live at 4330 Ray Ann Drive, and I'm about the sixth house down on the right. And I'm against the project. I'll tell you, a 24-hour business is never a good idea smack up against a resident homes. I mean, there's no barrier that's going to give us a break. And right now we have a break in the business noise. Lowe's is not open 24 hours, and we have Cly's mower service that's not open 24 hours. So we get a break. But a 24-hour business, we are never going to get a break. It's just not compatible with single-family homes. And I would just ask you to consider that there has to be another place for it, but not smack up against our homes. I agree with everything that everybody has said, but one of the things that wasn't addressed is that these storage tanks, they emit gases, and somebody did mention that they emit gases, but and I understand that there are things in place to mitigate the harm of these cancer-causing and disease-causing gases, but when you look at the research, these things fail. They just are not, it's there in the research for everybody to see that these things, they don't work. They do not work all the time. And that's a concern to me that not only is it a 24-hour business, but it's a 24-hour business that's emitting gases. And the research is showing that you cannot mitigate the harm. I mean, there's nobody that can guarantee that you're going to mitigate the harm, even when they're properly, manufactured, produced, or whatever this equipment is. They fail. So it's a problem. My husband and I moved into our home in 1980, so we have been here a number of years, and it kind of breaks my heart that we're even at this point where we're talking about a 24-hour gas station smack up against our homes. I mean, these are our homes. Again, like everybody else, I don't have anything personally against Wawa. I just don't want a 24-hour gas station. Benjamin, who lives 2 doors away from me, Benjamin Miller, he's right. We have Speedway, and Speedway, they're not busy. I mean, you can pull in anytime and get gas. I don't understand why we need another 24-hour gas station. So if this project were to fail, if Wawa goes in and they fail, now it's a concern, it's a whole different concern for our neighbors, is that what's going to go in after Wawa? I mean, what are they going to put in? A bar? I mean, what's going to be put in next? So it's just a bad idea to put this particular gas station across the street from Speedway, because Speedway is our gas station here in Ohio. I mean, I understand Wawa is popular throughout the country, but Speedway is popular in Ohio. So, you know, I don't think it's a good business decision on Wawa's part, and I think it's a horrible decision for us, because if Wawa goes belly up, now what are we going to do? You know, now what's going to move in? So anyway, thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have no other forms. Does anybody else want to speak tonight? Are you sworn in, sir? Okay, thank you.
Good evening.
Can you state your name and your address, please?
Yeah, Paul Cone, 11207 Old Colerain Road.
Okay.
First of all, no one has talked about Old Colerain Road. I live on Old Colerain. Our neighbors have talked about it. We don't want another turn lane up there. You know, there's something about Old Colerain. I don't know if any of you guys own motorcycles, sports cars. You ever drove Old Colerain? It's beautiful. Got trees, farms, horses down there. You come off of Colerain, you get out of that monstrosity, and you come onto Old Colerain. It's like another world. I just think you're opening up Pandora's box here by putting a convenience store, gas station. Did I hear wedding chapel too? It's just not the right place for it. We don't want that expanded up there. And there's really no reason that these neighbors, residents should suffer it. You know, I heard, well, you know, Rumpke could buy it, put trash there. Maybe a winery could buy it. Maybe Colerain Township could buy it and make it a green space. You know, what if they go out of business? Well, maybe we can jam another Walmart there. Where does it stop? All right. There's other places along Colerain I think would work. Maybe they redo Northgate Mall one of these years. I mean, that's been dying forever. But this is not the spot for it. I don't want it there. Really, maybe one or two people want it there. But I think the residents say, please vote no. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Oh, so, okay, well, she stood up first. We can.
I'm Connie Bernard. I live at 10393 Old Colerain Avenue. I signed it, yeah. I just want to say that I'm representing our Old Colerain neighbors, that we don't want it. I can't, you know, everything has been spoken eloquently about the issues with it, and I just, you know, I don't begrudge Mr. Cly for wanting to make some money and make a buck, but we don't want it at the expense of our property value either. There is a 24/7 gas station right across the street. We don't need another one. If there could be a compromise where if he wants to sell his property, just sell it to something that is not a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week, lights blaring, you know, noise blaring, lights glaring kind of property business. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, he's got to swear you in.
Evening.
Evening. My name's Tom Lay. I live at 4352 Rayanne Drive. About the traffic situations, I deliberately, when my wife is not in the car, pull into Rayanne Drive off of Colerain Avenue slow so that people coming from Ross that are going 60 miles an hour have to slow down. And I'm waiting for them to hit me. I want to get hit so that you guys can finally understand that traffic does not slow down. From Struble to Rayanne, they're still going 60, 65 miles an hour. I pull in there going 25 miles an hour and hope that they hit me. And I'm praying that sooner or later somebody starts realizing there needs more than just that flashing light or something right there at that intersection, because they are going extremely fast and you're going to put more traffic in that intersection right there. I think it's a mistake. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
I'd like to just address a few of the things Chuck Weddall, I already gave my information earlier, that we heard. One thing about the light modeling, those engineering studies are accurate. When our engineer says there will be 0-foot candles on the neighboring property, these are accurate models that are recognized all over the country, and we can guarantee that we're not going to emit light on the other properties. We heard a lot about traffic as well tonight, but Wawa, with most type of businesses like this, we live off existing traffic on the road. We're not a destination that you're going to go to Home Depot or go to Lowe's. It's existing traffic that pulls off the road, gets gas, gets a sandwich, and continues onward. So it's not a traffic generator, and I've heard a lot about traffic concerns, but we are not a traffic generator. It does sound like there's some issues with the road that everybody has issues with, but I don't really think it's Wawa creating those issues. I think they're existing issues that are out there. The fence type is not going to be a chain link fence. It will be a vinyl fence, and it will be white, and it will keep out sound, and we wouldn't put up a vinyl fence. Not a vinyl fence, a chain link fence. The trees, lady mentioned 2.5 gallon. We're going to actually, I think we mentioned we're putting in 15-foot tall trees. And by the way, those are on our property. And the trees that we're going to clear, once again, are not on the neighbor's property. They are on the property that we are proposing. And we are going to also keep approximately 1 acre plus of undisturbed property in the back that will never be disturbed. So there is still wildlife habitats. And last, a few people said about Wawa going out of business, and just respectfully, so Wawa is a multi-billion-dollar company with no debt, 0 debt. And so they are not going to go out of business. And I'll just say they're very financially secure. Our lenders are very happy with their financial ability, and we are as well. So I don't think that would be a concern of the community. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Go ahead.
Mandy Blackburn, 4136 Rand Drive. I work for Bed Bath & Beyond. They were a no-debt company also. They recently filed bankruptcy and closed all their stores. So I don't think we can judge what's going to happen with a business right now. I think we need to look to what could happen to a business right now. And it is possible that they could also get some bad CEOs or management or CFOs, and it could all go under, just like Bed Bath & Beyond did. Thank you.
Were you been sworn in? Okay.
Please raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I just have a couple of concerns.
Please state your name and address.
I'm sorry. Jason Matson, 4102 Rayan Drive. They say they're a community company, a community gas station, convenience store. I'd like to know where they've been the past meetings. They had that resident meeting. I didn't go. Why should I waste my time for them when they're not here when I'm here? I'm not going to take time out of my day to make something convenient for them. 2, you say you sell so many hoagies a day. How many gallons of gas do you sell a day? You never once put that up there. How many?
It's on their website.
I want to hear it from them. I understand that, but they don't put that up there because they're here for dog and pony show to show us all the bright lights and everything else. Second off, the water runoff still showed arrows coming down to our property. I want to know how that's going to stop. Anytime it rains hard, I get Clyde's water, it floods the creek, and then floods my basement. And that white plastic fence, junk. Absolute junk. I don't want to see it. I don't care if there's 15-foot trees in front of it. Junk. I'd rather see chain link. Please vote no. Thank you.
Thank you.
Benjamin Miller, 4228 Rand Drive. I just wanted to quickly rebuke his very initial statement because he said it's relying on existing traffic, but then their whole presentation was it's a destination, even for weddings. So I don't agree with that. I think it was
a statement to just rebuke all the statements that have been made tonight. So I just wanted to clear the air on that. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, so we are going to,
I will motion to close public hearing ZA 22309, major modification and amendment to case ZA 2005-006 PDP FDP and zoning map amendment from R3 to PDP 10345 and 10329 Colerain Avenue.
I'll second.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes. And for those that are here for this, then later it gets voted on after in new business. So.
Okay, the next item up is citizens' address, and I have a Brian Swafford.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Brian Swafford, Colerain graduate, Colerain resident, owner of Big Bear Barbecue, food trailer located at parking lot of American Trading Company, 3209. Be more than welcome you guys stop down, give me a look, give a look inside, and also give me a try, fill your stomachs up. Looking forward to the continuous growth of Colerain inside the Colerain Business District as well. I'm really excited about it. So this is just me all day, and looking forward to everything. And it's really
called
Big Bear BBQ. I was located over here at Springdale Road. I'm now relocated down here on Galbraith.
Okay.
So I appreciate your time. Have a good one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, is there any other citizens' address that didn't fill anything out? Okay, now we come to administrative reports.
Thank you, Trustee Ulrich. Kicking off the administrative reports this evening is Chief Alan Walls from the Fire Department.
Good evening, Chief.
Good evening, Board, and good evening to everybody in attendance. Tonight for our incident activity for July 20 of 23, we had 897 EMS incidents. We responded to 246 fire incidents. We made 27 responses into the Pleasant Run EMS contract area. We made 1 response into the West College Hill Gulfway EMS contract area. We had 3 significant building fires, one in the 9100 block of Round Top Road with a $235,000 loss. And I'll address that a little bit more here in just a minute. We had one in the 9500 block of Haddington Court with a $20,000 loss, and another in the 3200 block of Paprika Court with a $5,000 loss. We had a technical rescue incident on July the 22nd. That was a swiftwater rescue body recovery. Just to detail the response to that, we used boats, canines, drones, divers, sonar equipment, and personnel on foot, and we had aid from Ross Township, Whitewater Township, Miami Township, the City of Cincinnati, and a county drone team. So we went to a great degree to perform a rescue, but unfortunately ended up with a recovery 2 days later. Our property value lost was $260,000, but we saved $6.2 million with a 94.5% save rate for 2023. Our average response time for the arrival of the first unit was 5 minutes and 26 seconds, and first unit on the scene less than 6 minutes was 65%. Just to touch on the fire on Round Top Road, something I want to point out here. So Round Top Road has an assisted living facility, Northgate Park Senior Living. If you've never been there, looks a lot like a pinwheel. It has 6 different wings. There's approximately 20 rooms per wing, so there's about 120 rooms. At any given time, it's occupied by about 150 residents and workers. We were dispatched to a fire alarm. If anybody in here works in public safety, you should know that there are no routine runs. In fact, upon arrival, they found an audible alarm. Ended up being the water gong, which means water was moving through the sprinkler system. Our first unit was directed to the 300 wing, where they encountered smoke. They immediately requested the balance of a 1 alarm, which brought 4 more engine companies, 1 more ladder company, a rescue company, and 2 paramedic units, as well as additional staff. With that being the case, they needed to evacuate residents, albeit this is an assisted living facility with both independent and various levels of assistance. And likewise, locate, confine, and extinguish the fire. That required the placement of hand lines, with 1 engine company going to Brockton Drive, which could more easily access the 300 wing firefighters to the roof. They had to evacuate residents to a rally point, get the fire under control, perform loss control, get the sprinkler system under control to prevent additional water damage, and likewise shelter some residents in place. Once all of that was done, they were able to return residents to the unaffected parts of the building due to weather conditions, because conditions at that point on that Sunday afternoon were thunderstorms, in addition, high heat and humidity. So there were a number of elderly residents in the parking lot who could succumb to heat illnesses. Ends up, it was caused by a lightning strike. But I want to point out the fact that I ran that down in pretty short order, but I'm not one to stand up here and brag a lot. But I would like to say that our fire department and those that responded with us did a remarkable job, in addition to the staff at Northgate Park and our police department, and what was and could have been a significant fire, but were able to do a fantastic job of bringing things under control. And that is my administrative report.
My friend's mother lives there, and I was told, not by you, by them, but what a fantastic job you did, and thank you, because that's a hard group of people with wheelchairs and walkers to get out in a safe.
Well, a bit of a personal aside, my mother lives there as well.
Oh, okay.
And so, just a quick story. I was on the phone with my mother. She had called me, and we were speaking. When I looked down, and I saw that it had been redispatched as a structure fire. So I calmly said to my mother, "Gotta go, Mom." She
Get
said,
out.
And she goes, "What?" I said, "Gotta go. Probably see you in a bit." I hung up the phone. I didn't want to scare her. Didn't want to say, "Hey, Mom, your building's on fire." But where I'm going at is I have full faith and confidence in the men and women that serve this fire department, that honestly getting in my staff car and driving up here, I had no worries whatsoever about my mom's safety, as well as anybody in that building. And in fact, when I arrived and went straight to the incident commander's car, I performed my duties as chief, and eventually saw my mom getting pushed back in a wheelchair, and was like, "There's Mom," and all was well. So thank you.
Good, thank you for
Thank you for the hard work, Chief.
Next up with an administrative report is our police chief, Ed Cordy.
Welcome, Chief.
Good evening. As always, I get the pleasure of following Alan as he tells stories and makes everyone laugh.
That's when you go back out and get the dog.
Yeah, as always. All right, for the month of July, the police department, we responded to 4,040 calls for service, which is actually a decrease of 3% from last year. We responded to roughly 130 calls per day, and we're on a pace for 44,000 calls for service for the year. For the month, we conducted 213 traffic stops. We made 3 OVI arrests, 74 arrests. We had 3 uses of forces, 2 of which were a takedown, which is a tackle, and 1 taser deployment. For the month, we had 1 pursuit and 2 opened internal investigations. Jumping into the code enforcement side of the world, we had 110 violations, 284 inspections. We closed 53 violations. 9 were sent to housing court, 34 property maintenance violations, and Henry's out there with 4 litter complaints, 34 abandoned vehicles, 25 parking complaints, 3 solicitors, and 44 communications with the public. So once again, the code enforcement team is out there doing everything that they need to do for the everyday life and the well-being for the township. Just an update on the police department's effort to get the full staff. Again, we're still at 62 officers. We have 1 cadet that's in the academy right now that's generating some interest for us. We're looking at a few from that class right now, but we're still looking at 6 additional officers to hire, with 1 known to be retiring that's watching right now. Hi, Steve. He'll be retiring here in a few months. Just a recap of our events for the month, National Night Out. We had our first one. I would like to believe and say that it was a huge success. It was just unbelievable the amount of people that were there. So it was tremendous for that sake. It was great for our department. It was great for the community, and I don't know why we would not have been doing this in the past, but we will be doing it in the future. You have any questions for me?
Sure. There was in the public hearing that just ended, there was quite a few comments about cars speeding on southbound 27 near Old Colerain. Just, do you have any comments on that at all, or
I think
accidents?
the concerns of reaching out and looking at ODOT and trying to identify a better spot to have the reduction in speed is a valid question or a valid concern. So it transitions from a higher end speed limit of 60 down to 35 just north of the intersection, and this is a concern we've heard for quite some years. So I think it's a very valid concern.
Let me follow that up with something I noticed. I've been driving up and down Rayan. You've probably seen my car a good 8 or 10 times. But the first thing I noticed too, and one of the people with me who doesn't follow any of this kind of stuff immediately said, well, a lot less people are going to use this if they advertise it as a dead-end street. And I think somebody in one of the public comments was that the sign's all mangled. It's difficult to see. While we're working with ODOT on that, can we get some signs up there so that no matter what happens with anything else, that we get some folks. I think people are less likely to turn down a dead-end street. And you certainly wouldn't have an 18-wheeler, I wouldn't think, go down any.
Not if they have.
Well, yeah. Let me take that back. People will try what they can, but
We have a lot of calls for service every day, and some of which are poor decisions like that, so you never know. So speed and signage, I understand that, and even if this is not my shop, I will take notes and do my best to pass it along.
yeah, I know. As soon as Mr. Unger asked, I said, well, I'm gonna try to get something else out.
That's one of the main concerns I heard from the different speakers is concerns about traffic and speed, and I'm pretty familiar with that stretch of road also, and I don't know if there's accidents from people going south on 27, turning left to get on Generation Drive to go into Speedway.
Not as much as you would expect, but we definitely have quite a few very bad crashes at the intersection of Struble, but not to be going at Generation. A little bit north, right at Struble.
North of, you mean?
Right at,
It's in one block.
right at 27, Old Colerain, and Struble, right there. So it's technically
So
at 27 and Struble.
So what would improve that? Improvements from ODOT or?
To be honest with you, I don't know.
You're not an engineer and I'm not either, but.
I have a personal and professional opinion on this. Probably shouldn't give you my personal, but I will. If we move the speed, we had the reduction a little bit further north would be beneficial, I think, for everybody.
Which is an ODOT question.
Absolutely.
And also, thank you. I've been pushing for this for all 4 years, and we finally had it, and I was out of town on vacation. But I've heard so many good things about the National Night Out, and hopefully that's here to stay. And you guys, from what I understand, talking to some folks, did an outstanding job, and I appreciate that. So thank you so much.
And I was there, as you know, and the volunteers were fantastic. Thanks for the Krogers for the hot dogs and buns. Meyer, sorry. And then Grippo with the potato chip and the ice machine. I think everything was probably all sold out, gone, done, and the volunteers. Jamie was a water boy. The dogs were there. The trainers were there. It was a nice night out. The kids enjoyed themselves, and it was just a great community event. And I thank all the volunteers. It was the Citizens Police Patrol. Everybody did such a wonderful job with tickets. So it was a wonderful community event of all kind of people coming together.
Yeah, I mean, this was something that was spearheaded by the code enforcement team, and this was almost on the side of the community policing side of it, and special to Jamie that's sitting back there, Lieutenant Penley in the corner, and to his team, and specifically Officer Robert Bolt, who really took this by the horns and did this. So they did a great job.
It was well received. It was a great help.
And I think it only builds on, the Ohio legislature required starting last year how to interact with the police officer for all high school students. I am in firm belief that things like National Night Out and having police and kids together in the same room is going to save lives. And I think there's no doubt about that. So I appreciate all that as we move along. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, the kids enjoyed getting in that old cop car.
They did.
They had a lot of pictures taken in there. Fun, fun.
Anything else from you, board?
I'm good, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Our next administrative report is for Public Services, and that will be presented by Assistant Administrator Mays.
Good evening, Administrator Mays.
I have a few items. First, I would like to invite everyone to join us at Colerain Park this Friday for our last summer movie of the year, or excuse me, it's not the last one, for Sonic 2. And then next Friday, we have Shakespeare in the Park. So we got a lot of good Fridays coming up. And lastly, I would, on the behalf of the department, I'd like to thank the fire department and Chief Walls for helping us water our pollinator garden.
Oh.
It looks beautiful. Check it out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And our final administrative report will come from Development and Director David Miller.
Welcome back.
Just a quick update on planning and zoning development. Our two new staff additions just continue to crush it, and just being able to churn out the permits. Our turnaround time is significantly decreased. I think it's been very helpful, not only for the homeowners, but businesses as well. Keep them moving on their projects. Last couple of months, June and July, total of 119 variety of permits. We have 11 new single-family homes that are being built. If you notice in Dunlap Grove, a lot of houses going up in there right now concurrently. 6 new solar projects, then 85 decks, fences, etc. on single-family homes as well. Residences. Zoning Commission had 5 cases, and the Board of Zoning Appeals had a couple. So, again, staying very busy, and glad to be able to process those quickly with the staff. Any questions?
Nope, thank you.
No, at this time, thanks.
Okay. Okay, so now we go to the trustee report. Do you want-
With the number of people here, I'm going to pass on my trustee report because I think these folks want to
Okay.
get to the meat of the next item.
Well, I just have a few things. We moved our pickleball tournament this Saturday. It's going to be at the Senior Center. The first match will be an exhibition game between fire and police. So, game on. Also, and I don't know if anybody read about the lithium battery recycling pilot program with Rumpke. We're working with our fire department and EMS services to keep the fire hazards with Rumpke. So look in our Colerain Facebook, and so see what we can do about the lithium batteries with Rumpke and the fire department. And we have a tomorrow event at the Health and Safety Fair at the Mall, hosted by the Northwest Local School District, both by our fire and police departments. So, and going back with the fire, today, a fire truck was coming down. Please, people, be respectful of our fire trucks coming down. Get over. I mean, just give those few seconds that are minutes where people are trying to get out of the way. Lose one spot on Colerain. Just get out of the way. Let the fire trucks and ambulance get to where they're going. So that's all.
All right, I'll keep things short. Trustee Ulrich mentioned it, the lithium battery. So I represent all of the townships in Hamilton County on the solid waste board, and one of the things that they really tried to work on is a program to get rid of these batteries that cause significant damage in trucks, in landfills and things. If you ever hear there was a garbage truck that caught on fire, the chances are there's probably some battery in there. The way this is set up, there'll be certain fire stations where you can dispose of it, because who knows better how to dispose of it than firefighters. And it may seem like a small thing, but it's going to save a significant amount of cost in terms of responding to fires and save injuries and lives and things like that. Just to everybody, I saw a couple people as they came up. Mine, for the first time ever, stayed on all day, but thanks for voting today. The turnout, I always tell people, so my backstory is I teach high school government, and I always tell students at Elder, where I teach, I'm like, I want you to vote, even if I have to drive you to the polls to vote against me. I want you to vote. And when I see the numbers that are coming out today, as I walked in, it was in the 30 percentile for special election on one issue. The last time we had a single issue special election in August, I think it was like 9% turnout. So it's incredible, and wherever you are on the issues, I think it's great that people took the time to go to the polls and express that opinion. And I already talked a little bit about the National Night Out, and I appreciate that. I think that one of the things that you can't measure is the community police and community fire that our groups, that our fire and police do here in Colerain Township. They get it, and they do it very well. And it's, I think traditionally, my sister's been a police officer for 25 plus years. Traditionally, it's kind of like, well, community policing. No, it does work. You build those relationships, and it's helpful. And I just appreciate everybody coming out this evening and sharing their opinion, as you've done on other public hearings as well. And just thank you so much for that. All right.
Okay. So we are going to move on to new business.
Mr. Miller.
All right, new business. First category here is under development, and so our first item is you have before you two resolutions. One is approval of the application for case number ZA 2023-09. The other is a denial, and so it'll be your choice as to which one. And so we've had a public hearing tonight on continuation from the previous Board of Trustees meeting, and so this is the time that you get to vote on this particular resolution.
So do you have a recommendation?
The Development Department recommended approval based on the changes that the developer had brought forward that were included in the revised plan that came before the board tonight.
Okay. In order for the board to discuss this, we need to get it to the floor and seconded. So I will go ahead, and I've got a lot of things I've written down to discuss, but to get it to the floor, I'm going to go ahead and motion to approve zoning commission case ZA 2023-09 major amendment as you described.
Okay, I'll second the motion.
So, and like I said, everybody's had a chance to discuss this. The board has not had a chance to discuss it because the way we are set up, we cannot talk outside of meetings, and that's how it should be, so we're talking here in front of you. I heard a lot of things here, and one of the compelling things I heard was there's a lot of other issues at that intersection on Rayanne. I didn't really hear anybody say anything bad about Cly, but I do have some questions, and I don't know if the folks from Wawa would be able to answer that. And I'm going to start off with asking you a question. If we approve this, is that the final, or does it go back to zoning?
It's just another step in the process. It then goes, there's a final development plan that would take place if there was an approval tonight.
So all these things that were talked about would be handled by the zoning board, and they would give a final up or down on it?
There would be some more specific details that they would address pursuant to the final development plan.
Okay. Well, I want to mention a couple of the notes that I took. One of them was there's issues with Rayanne with this project, and looking at the drawings, I don't know if this is if that can be part of what's included in the zoning to correct those issues, or how close is it when you pull out of Wawa? These are unanswered questions. How close is it when you pull out of Wawa going south before you get to Rayanne? Is that a real tight distance where somebody coming out of Rayanne might not see a car coming out of Wawa? And would our zoning address that? Adding cars to the traffic count And I've heard two conflicting parts about that. I'm pretty familiar with the traffic that comes down 27 every morning from Ross. Some of the residents talked about cutting trees down, and in Chihuahua, my question would be for if you end up in front of zoning, are you replacing more trees than you are cutting down? And I heard a difference in if they were little trees or 15-foot tall trees. The financially solvent question, you had a resident comment if you were financially solvent or not. I also looked at your website. It seems like a big, stable company. The Clyde property, everybody knows what's across the street from that, and I think Rumpke does a great job with the type of work they do. And I'm trying to look 10 years down the road. If this is denied, what happens with the Clyde property? Does everybody eventually moves on in life and either dies or sells or moves along? What would be the other use of that property? Looking at the drawings that were presented, I'm guessing all the buildings get cleared off of that land, and you're going to change the topography and sort of retain the water onto the land rather than, it sounds like there's already existing problems with, and we're not a stormwater decision board, I will say that, but it sounds like you're addressing that as far as the stormwater. So I wonder what it would be 10 years from now. I asked Chief Cordy about accidents on 27 South turning left to get into Speedway, and would a gas station on the southbound side of the road cut down on some of that traffic that's turning east on Struble? A part of me, I'm kind of a big believer in the free market and capitalism. If I saw your presentation right, you're considering investing $6.5 million into this project, plus whatever your negotiation is with Ply to purchase his land. That's a substantial investment. I wish you were here at the last meeting, and I agree with the residents, and you explained it as you had conflicting information about being here, so thank you for coming tonight, and it sounds like you've all traveled to get here. Are there electric vehicle pumps, or not pumps, but are there electrical vehicle charging stations on this property?
So we have a corporate agreement with Tesla. At every store we do, we put in 8 spaces that are set aside for them. We run conduit to them, but then whether they come in and install the chargers or not is up to them. So as they build out their network, but we have it all totally set up for them where it's very easy if they do choose to come put them in.
And you're not from here, but over in Green Township, there's a Meyer store that has an agreement with Tesla. And I sat over there one Sunday, and I had a fellow come in, and I asked him, can you charge other cars off those Tesla chargers? And we happen to have 2 chargers out here in the parking lot that we got through a federal grant. So would those just service Teslas, or?
They've got agreements now with Ford and General Motors where the little adapter works on all of them. I don't think they have anything with Honda, Toyota, and some of the others, but they recently did announce.
I'm more in favor of a private industry paying for that rather than the 2 that the federal government gave us money for that I can see out in our lot. And then on the drawing, if you're coming south on 27 and you're going to turn right on Old Colerain, going north on Old Colerain, did I see an expanded lane there? Because one of my concerns would be traffic backing up, waiting to make a left turn into Wawa. So if I wanted to go on out Colerain Old Colerain a mile north, am I going to be stuck behind traffic turning into Wawa?
I think the 2 proposed turn lanes, we've got a southbound right turn into our site on Colerain Avenue, and I think the other one was a right turn lane from.
But that would, I know it wouldn't get approved until that was addressed, because even if Colerain zoning would approve it, you still have to get approved by
ODOT.
ODOT?
Yes.
How long would it?
I don't think it's been said out loud, but I just want to say it that that's all our expense. That's not public money doing that.
Okay, and I think you would pay to run a sewer up there also.
Yes, and I know that was mentioned earlier, and we heard a lot about that at the neighborhood meeting as well. There are 2 homes that front on Colerain Avenue that MSD's regulation, if you're within a certain number of feet, you have to tie into it. So there's 2 homes on Colerain Avenue that would be required to. On Rayanne, 0 people would be required to tie into that.
And one of the biggest things about construction projects is the how long does it take? If this was approved how long do you see being out there? It's not something that would drag on for a year or two, and the residents would have all this construction noise, or the last store you built, how long does it take?
So, our development partners deliver to us a pad-ready site, and then we build the building, the canopy, the tanks, all of that stuff. Our part is 6 months.
Okay, and then,
Yeah, 60 days plus 6 months, basically.
for the pad, and then, so there'd be a disruption for about 7 months worth of weather and everything being agreeable? And,
I got 6 and 2.
and then, I heard talk of a 15-foot wall.
So on a previous iteration of the plan, we had a retaining wall along the backyards of Rayanne Drive, but at that time, the setback was only 10 feet, so we shifted everything, so it's now 30 feet. So now we can make that up with grading and not need the retaining wall, so it's really just the fence now.
So, and I hear the concerns of the folks that live on Rayanne about, somebody being on the Wawa property and committing a crime and running back into Rayanne. Did you say there's a fence that completely encloses the property on the Rayanne side?
So it'll wrap back around the back side of like where the detention pond area was shown,
Yeah.
and basically close off our site from that whole back part that's not being developed.
Right, so it would probably run from Colerain Avenue all the way behind your property and then over to Old Colerain.
Yeah, basically to the detention pond area, and yes. We were I think a couple folks asked about the height. We proposed 8 feet.
And to see, all those little details are stuff that would be better worked out in zoning than here with the three of us. And like I said, we have not had a chance to discuss this, but I would like to hear what the other trustees have to say. But I took pretty many notes during not just tonight, but during the public hearing last week. So,
And if it's okay, I'd like to offer up too that the signage that was mentioned on Rayanne about the dead end turnaround, we'd be glad to replace that and put in more appropriate signage that would at least hopefully help deter some of that at our cost.
okay, well that,
Okay.
have at it.
No, you good.
Let me get back, sorry, to the fence. If you look at the property, it's probably better if I had the drawing in front of me, but it's almost like a U. Is the fence covering the whole U?
Basically, when you get to the back of the auto parking and the detention pond area, we'd run it straight across and then just leave that entire back area undisturbed. But it would kind of come from Colerain down like this, over like this, make an L shape, and then basically not touch anything back there.
Okay, so for lack of a better word, the retention pond for the stormwater will have the fence behind it?
Right.
And that looks from the drawing, and again, I don't know, like, obviously the scale, but how big is that retention area? That seems like it's a pretty...
It is, and it's to meet Hamilton County's stormwater quality and quantity regulations. And like it was mentioned earlier, I mean, it currently, for Cly, it discharges into a couple of backyards on Old Colerain, and we're putting in an underground system, so that will no longer be the case.
What is and again, some of this terminology I'm not really used to, but you talked about setbacks. So if I'm standing at a pump, what's the closest, what's the closest to a fence? Is it 30 feet? Is it 35?
The 30 feet is from the property line to the back of the curb.
And would part of that 30 feet include, I guess it probably wouldn't matter, but would it include paving?
No. There's nothing in that 30 feet other than landscaping and fence.
Okay. There's a lot of talk about light, and this might be for Mr. Miller as well. We have at township level light restrictions, and should this go forward and go to the I guess for a more permanent plan, we can limit. I don't actually have in front of me what the limitations are for the township, but we could further limit it if we want to. Is that the case?
So the lighting plan is generally not submitted until
the final development.
The FDP is, but they have submitted it as was in your packet.
Right.
And it does show with the lighting plan that they have developed zero, I think it's 0.1 foot candles at the property line. And so those pictures are not doctored and photoshopped. That is what they have produced with their plan. And so they can direct those with the lights that they have, the bulbs, all of the shields that they put on those. And so
Okay, what level did you say it was again? The point 0.01?
What'd you say? Point. Yeah, it's almost zero at the property line.
Where's the max at the township? Is that the max the township allows?
That is the amount that we require at the property line.
Okay. All right, the big question, I don't know that you can answer this. One of the things that we've run into as boards oftentimes on a project like this is, I did some research, and you spend $6.5 million on this. Once it's built, is it a practice of Wawa to then go back to maybe the auditor's office and have that value revalued in order to change the tax liability? Or is that a value that's stuck in that you've committed to because you've committed to the community kind of thing?
Right. I mean, what we invest in it is probably what it would be assessed at, I assume. I don't know that I have a perfect answer for that, but obviously we'd be paying a lot more taxes than the existing business.
But we've had people then say, I'm gonna put $10 million into this. They build it for $10 million, and we have all these projections, and they go back to the auditor and say, well, it's only worth $3 million. And typically the auditor accepts that, even though there's a lot of times the school district is the group that will try to fight that. But that's not within your business model.
Absolutely not.
Okay. I think okay, the southbound. All right, I'm trying to again picture this because I've driven this all different ways. And what surprised me on the traffic issue is that it's not what I expected. So the worst time I had was going northbound on 27, looking to turn left at about 6:30, in the evening. I honestly thought it would be going the other way in the morning, but so you've got this southbound in the right turn lane. I think there's a light there. Is that going to be before or after the light, or?
It'll be south of the light at Struble.
South of the light, okay. Because that literally took me one cycle to turn left there, and I'm like, again, my hypothesis was it would be in the morning, 7:30 in the morning going the other direction, but in reality it was something different, and I just wanted to ask that. And the other thing that we've heard, look, and you brought this up, I think in the citizens meeting. One of the issues on a property like this or anything right now is it's hard to get people to work. You have a guaranteed three per shift, 24 hours. Okay.
Absolutely. So the night shift basically is minimum 3 people.
Okay.
We also offer free coffee and food and such to police and fire to encourage them to stop by the store.
Okay. What happens if I can't have 3 people on a shift?
I've never taken anything free.
Let's say I'm the manager, the shift manager at Wawa, and I've only got one other person. Do you call in another manager? What?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
That's a very hard rule.
Okay. So even if I go down the list and I've called every employee, they can't make it, but I'm going to have to call in the store manager if it needs to be. Is that?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I think that's all I had.
Okay. Well, you addressed a lot of the same questions. What is, with the expanse of this retention pond, is there when they were talking about mosquitoes, do you have a plan of action of chemicals that you treat with, or how?
It's a dry detention basin that
dry.
draws down in 72 hours per Hamilton County's regulations.
Okay, so I just wanted to come back.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Hi, thanks. Bill Skiba with Kimley Horn. Speaking to the detention basin, we will be providing a depth of the basin per OEPA standards to prevent stratification and the growth of cattails and growth like that doesn't incentivize bugs and pollutants like that. It's against code of design, anything that might propagate that kind of animal behavior. So we're working that into our design, and that's something that's going to be to code with the county.
Okay, and so is it going to be a mowable piece of, and so it will be maintained for aesthetic value also?
Yeah, per per final design, we will be providing a maintenance schedule that goes along with iteration of when the side slopes need to be mowed, when the basin needs to be dredged, when any sort of maintenance that goes along with the performance of the basin needs to take place. And that does include mowing, and we do design the basin to accommodate mowers for the side slopes.
Okay. And now with, we fight a lot in Colerain Township with littering, and so where I live, I have a lot of litter from different the fast food restaurants that are there. I'm gathering that some of the people that are working there are part owners of the company. So do you offer like bonuses and and different things to keep maintain the building from trash and like we'll call it the broken window syndrome? So what's your policies on that?
So we do have an annual bonus program that, of course, is tied to performance and such. We have the ESOP program. But specific to that, we have hourly checklists that the employees are required to do literally every hour, 24 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
So that's basically our enforcement mechanism. So
they get a better word of demerits if somebody's calling and complaining about trash not being cleaned up.
certainly, I mean, absolutely. I mean, the store managers, I should probably have mentioned this earlier, in the convenience store industry, the average tenure of an employee is something like 7 months, and ours is over 7 years. So
okay.
that's very significant, and obviously there's a lot of care that goes into that.
Okay, and then the sewers, they're going to come back from AutoZone, correct? And then that's about how far, that's why those two houses that are located next to Lowe's there and then the Rayan, that's why they're going to be tied in, because it's coming, I just want to be specific of where the sewers are coming down from Colerain. Okay. Okay.
So if ODOT, if you get through us and get to zoning, and get back to zoning, and they talk about intersection improvements, which isn't, is your company funding those, or?
Yeah, so
do you
the traffic
expect
study's been
ODOT to pay
completed.
for
It's
it?
going through the approval process with ODOT, and it's generated a number of recommendations based on turn lane warrants, signal warrants, all those type of things. So the signal timing will change, and the two turn lanes that we mentioned are the recommendations from the report.
Right, but then what our police chief said was one of the bigger problems is people are, if you've been north
The
of.
speed limit, we can't do anything
Right, that's
about.
what I
That's
mean.
purely
One of
an-
the bigger problems is getting that speed limit
Yes.
addressed. Well, what was my other question here I wanted to ask? I'll yield back to you. I relooked
you're
through my
fine.
notes.
What is the store's policy on overnight parking?
We don't have, we don't serve trucks really, so we don't
But
really.
like vans, I know the big thing now, I'm told, is van life. People living in their vans and parking in places, and that is actually a thing, believe it or not. Yeah. What is the policy for overnight parking? So what these folks do, good or bad, I'm not judging, but they pull up into a place like Walmart or Love's is notorious for this, park and spend the night there and then go back on the road. Is that something that's permitted typically? Is that something, I mean, I would think East Coast has probably run into that issue a little bit.
During the final development plan, I will get you the store pie. I honestly don't
Okay.
know that, and I'm not gonna make it up, so.
And,
Well, we have our local police here. Get 'em out.
well, right, but if they kind of turn a blind eye, the local police don't help because it's private property.
Walmart does have a policy that they allow overnight camping.
What's that?
Yeah, I think that's,
Right,
I think
that's right.
that's correct.
Yeah, by store, I think, yeah. And what about people outside, panhandling, the panhandling policy that you have?
Sir, I mean, I think I'll supply that.
Okay.
Same information to you. I don't know that off the top of my head, but.
So I have a question for our administrator. If we approve this and it goes back to zoning to work out all these issues, what would be the timeline on that?
Well, the timeline can vary depending on the work that the applicant needs to complete and, the other parties that are participating in it. But I would expect that this would be something that would be a month or two.
Because if we don't send it back to them, I don't see any of these other issues ever getting addressed because Wawa would walk away and the problems would still be at the intersection that exists with the traffic and the accidents and the turns and that. So that's kind of where I'm at on it. I'd rather have our zoning look at it and see what we can get out of Wawa, so, to fix these problems.
Very good.
I'm good.
No good questions.
Okay.
But that'll, a positive vote on this would send it back to zoning.
Yes, once the final
Okay.
development plan is completed and reviewed by staff, then it would go to zoning commission for their
And they
consideration.
could up or down it?
Correct.
Okay.
And in the FDP, final development plan, zoning gives the up or down. Is there a step after that?
No.
Okay.
I would like to see all these, not just the Wawa issues, but the street issues and the 27 issues and the old Colerain issues and the Rayan issues all addressed. And, no, they're not. I buy. Are your methods and construction methods EPA approved?
Absolutely.
And I know that I'm 61 years old. I've lived here my whole life. I remember before anything was developed north of Springdale Road. I remember there used to be a gas station there at Rayan, and where I think there's 2 concrete blocks there, and that's been gone for a long time. In the state of Ohio, the Bureau of Underground Storage Tanks went through 30 years ago, and a lot of little independent gas stations got shut down because they could not afford to get with all the upgrades. But, you know, it's 2023. To answer her question, your tanks are contained and tested, and you've got monitoring wells and...
Absolutely. We got double wall tanks that are industry-leading standard. You can't buy them.
And that's not what existed when that other gas station was there.
No, they were made out of metal back then. They're made out of fiberglass now, double-walled. Night and day difference.
But to answer that specific question, you know, she's concerned that Wawa might not meet those up-to-date standards.
But it's a fact that when they vent the underground tanks, that the stuff is emitted into the air. And whether it's EPA regulated or not, it is not healthy. Like Mandy said last week, we're not allowed to idle our cars in the Colerain Township school parking lots because of the emissions from the fuel. But you're expecting us to take it up our backyards.
I mean, the EPA has standards on how many parts per million of every chemical on Earth is allowed to be emitted, and
How often does the EPA come out and test your facilities for?
I don't know.
Okay.
But the fines are enormous, right? Enormous. So we've got a major, major incentive to do this right.
In fact, I understand the purpose of the setback is for when people fill up so that the fumes don't, is that?
That's just a typical zoning setback. The 30 feet is, you know.
It's
for
based upon
landscape
Ohio
and such.
EPA, and some of the literature I ran into suggest and part of the reason is to keep a distance between the fuel pumps themselves in the house.
Yes.
Right,
And we did move the tanks from a previous iteration of the plan, so we did do, you know, what we could to accommodate that.
There are other sites, empty buildings that are already there, sewers that are already there, that are not
Okay.
residents.
We're just gonna curtail this, out.
So
Thank you.
look, my last point was if there is a zoning hearing, the Wawa staff that you've brought along would be there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the whole staff that you've got here tonight.
Yes.
Okay. I guess that was a communications issue that the other man brought up in the beginning. Okay.
Yeah, we apologize.
Well, that's fine. I just want to let the process play out so that all these other issues get addressed, so. I'm ready.
We're ready.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
The next item on the agenda is also from the Development Department. It is a motion to approve a revised Colerain Township Planning and Zoning
Jeff,
fee
hold
schedule.
on, why don't we hold on?
So, next item on the agenda is our fee schedule for planning and zoning. And there have been a couple of items that have been identified by our zoning administrator.
Can we take those renderings out to the lobby so we can finish the meeting? Sure, okay, that would appreciate. Thank you. Thank you. No problem.
We'll give them a second to do that. It's-
That's right.
No problem. Thank you.
All right, ready? All right, next item is a couple of changes for our fee schedule. Our zoning administrator identified two items that we needed to adjust. One is for lot consolidation and the costs that are included in that work in the review. The other is that the fee schedule still included high-rise interstate signs, and those have been outlawed, and so we're removing that. So it just need your approval for the new fee schedule.
I'll motion to approve revised Colerain Township Planning and Zoning fee schedule.
I'll second. Any discussion?
Not for me.
None.
None?
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Walder?
Yes.
Final item from development would be a request that you set a public hearing for August 22nd for Zoning Commission Case ZA 2023-10. This is a text amendment to Article 5 of the zoning resolution regarding violations and penalties. And so our zoning administrator has done an analysis of a number of surrounding townships, large urban townships like Colerain across the state, and those were included as part of the analysis, so that we are recommending that we would make have a public hearing on violations and penalties, and all of this will be discussed at the 22nd of August Board of Trustees meeting.
I motion that we set a public hearing for August 22nd, 2023 for Zoning Commission Case ZA 2023-10, text amendment to Article 5 of the zoning resolution, the reason violations and penalties.
I'll second. Any discussion?
None.
None?
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Walder?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Madam President, the next items that are on the agenda are for public safety and are going to be presented by our police chief. He is out in the rotunda at the moment.
Okay.
Actually, talk about timing. Ladies and gentlemen, police chief
Yeah.
Ed Cordy.
Apologies.
Thank you.
What do we have first? All right, I have before you a resolution declaring nuisance and ordering abatement. This resolution allows for the removal of uncontrolled vegetation and/or refuge at the following properties: 10-292 Hawkhurst Drive, 10-293 Hawkhurst Drive, 2560 Houston Road, 8258 Jackie's Drive, 11, 992 Pippin Road, 8863 Planet Drive, 12, 120 Stone Mill Road, 2532 Topeka Street, and 11, 926 Wincanton Drive. Recommend adoption of this resolution.
I motion.
I've lost it.
I motion that we approve the resolution declaring nuisance and ordering abatement at the properties as described by Chief Cordy.
I'll second.
Discussion?
None.
None.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
All right, we have item B, resolution declaring a junk motor vehicle at 2590 Altura Drive. There's actually two. First one is a 2005 green Chevrolet Trailblazer. The second is a 2011 silver Chevrolet Traverse. Recommend adoption of the resolution.
I motion that we approve the resolution declaring a junk motor vehicle at 2590 Altura Drive, two vehicles.
I'll second. No, any discuss?
No.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next items on the agenda are from Public Services and will be presented by Assistant Administrator Mays.
Welcome back, Ms. Mason.
It's great to be back. Thank you. Okay, Board, I have next on the agenda for Public Services, item A motion authorizing the Township Administrator to execute a contract with Snyder Recreation for the Skyline Park Playground installation. Information on this item can be found on page 119 of your agenda packet. The Township advertised the bid package for the installation of the playground at Skyline Park and received 4 responses. Due to the project being funded completely by the Community Development Block Grant in the amount of $73,600, the contract is being awarded to the bid that meets the highest scoring tabulation. Out of a possible 130 points, Snyder Recreation earned the most with a total of 121.4 points. A Hamilton County Community Development staff member was present for the bid openings, participated in the scoring of the bid responses, and approved the award contending upon your approval. Staff recommendation is approval for the motion.
A motion that we authorize the Township Administrator to execute a contract with Snyder Recreation for the Skyline Park Playground installation.
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
No, thank you for working on it.
Yeah.
It's my pleasure. It was a very thorough
The
point.
community
tabulation.
build part of it is interesting.
It'll be neat to see that.
I am too. I'm see how that turns out.
Any other discussion?
Nope.
Okay.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you, Board. The second is item B, a motion authorizing the Township Administrator to execute an agreement with Choice One Engineering for the Pool Road sidewalks in the amount of $105,753. This information can be found on page 122 of your packets. The township was awarded a grant through the OKI, which is the Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana Regional Council of Governments, for the installation of sidewalks on Pool Road. This agreement with Choice One Engineering would provide for all site plans and engineering for this project. The project is expected to begin in 2025. Staff recommendation is an approval of the motion.
I motion that we authorize the Township Administrator to execute an agreement with Choice One Engineering for the Pool Road sidewalks for $105,753.
I'll second that.
Any discussions?
Thank you for working on that. That's been just one big, long, ongoing project, so
Yeah.
thank you.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
And the next 2 items on the agenda come from administration. They will also be presented by Ms. Mays.
Do you want me to leave and come back? Or?
Yeah, you go. Get your steps in.
I'm kidding, I'm teasing. Okay, next on the agenda under administration is item A motion authorizing the Township Administrator to enter into a grant agreement with Hamilton County for Joseph Road Sidewalk Project for $250,000. This information can be found in your packets on page 149. The township applied for a grant from Hamilton County through their Community Revitalization Grant The project is anticipated to cost $500,000, and the grant award is for 50% of the cost, which was the $250,000 that I had mentioned. Staff recommendation is an approval of the motion.
I motion we authorize the township administrator to enter into grant agreement with Hamilton County for Joseph Road Sidewalk Project for $250,000.
I'll second that.
Discussion?
This is great news.
Yeah.
I've been waiting for this for a long time. A lot of students cut through there, and we'll be able to keep them safe.
No other comments?
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you. The final item under administration is a resolution modifying the organizational chart. This information can be found on page 154 of your packets. This resolution contemplates a change in the organizational chart to transition a part-time code enforcement officer into a full-time status. With the bankruptcy of Pro Champs, staff thoroughly reviewed the feasibility of moving the current part-time code enforcement officer into a full-time capacity to monitor and manage vacant property inventory. With this, the township would be able to continue monitoring these properties internally without disrupting operations and without the need to continuing a third-party agreement with another vendor. Staff recommendation is an approval for this resolution.
To get it to the floor for discussion, I'd like to approve the resolution modifying the organizational chart.
I'll second. Discussion?
One of the things that I talked about with Chief, and like I always say, I don't know where the other guys are at on it, it's what is the matrix we're going to use to determine if this is successful or not?
I know there's been some internal communications with Administrator Weckbach and Chief Cordy, I believe as well, Mr. McElravy. I know I've not really been a part of those conversations, but I know we were, one item that we were discussed were to look at our inventory and how we're keeping track of that and the cost savings on what it would have cost us for Pro Champs.
Right,
Please feel free to expand on
I
that.
just don't want that employee to get dragged away into other duties when there needs to be a focus on getting the vacant properties. That's what I was looking for with the matrix. And I'm sorry Mr. Weckbach isn't here, but I did have that discussion with him.
And I think we've got a good set of baseline data in order to be able to do comparisons going forward, not just from the work that Pro Champs did when they had a team dedicated to this, but also from prior years when we were performing this work in-house, and we had one person who was working on it part-time. So it's definitely something that we're going to be tracking. One of the more compelling reasons for bringing it in-house is the number of vendors that are available in the marketplace that do this kind of work is pretty limited. So that was certainly a factor that we considered when bringing this recommendation to you.
Right, and that's, I just wanted to acknowledge that there's been a discussion on it, because I know you guys are probably just as interested as
Well, there was
any of
only
us
one
on
other
it
company.
being successful.
I think that was our only choice, one other company.
That's right.
Yeah, one, so that we didn't have a whole lot of choice, and I think we've had a lot of citizens' comments about pro-choice and their work, so hopefully we will do a way better job.
No comments?
Ms. Ulrich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you, trustees, that's all.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is old business, a topic of much discussion over the prior months. This is a resolution to adopt the legislative priorities for the 2024 through 2026 strategic plan and budget. There are 6 priorities that are listed in the board packet on page 159. This is consistent with the conversations that this board has been having for, as I mentioned, the last several months. Staff recommendation is adoption of the resolution.
I motion we adopt the resolution adopting legislative priorities for 2024 through 2026.
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
Yes, and I know this is a great coming together of the three of us, and we did talk about item 6, and I would just like the other trustees to consider that I think we made great progress on our street rehabilitation this year by doing our 23 and 24 streets. And if there's funding available in the general fund, I would like to increase the road budget for next year also, so we can pick up some of the 25 streets and 26 streets, since we're getting all the 23s and 24s done. That's the only way we're ever going to get caught up on our roads. And I really appreciate the working together and the support when we did this last year. But as we get to develop next year's budget, that'll be something we discuss. So.
Nothing from me.
Nothing.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
The next two items are on our consent agenda. The first is a contract for $0 with the Standard to, to extend the supplemental insurance grace period from 30 days to 60 days. And the second item is a new hire. This is the follow-up to item B from the administration presentation, modifying the organizational chart. And this is a recommendation to hire an employee who is currently part-time as a code enforcement officer to be full-time as a code enforcement specialist. His name is Nick Hopewell. We conducted an interview process, and he emerged as the best candidate to fulfill the need. The wage for this job is $21.65 per hour for 40 hours a week, and contingent upon board approval, he would be eligible to begin work in his new role tomorrow. Staff recommendation is approval of all the consent items.
I motion to approve consent items A and B as presented by Mr. McElravy.
I will second it.
Discussions?
None.
None?
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Next item on the agenda is the fiscal officer's report. Thank you, Board. Let me get situated here. First, I wanted to also mention that I came to the National Night Out and was really impressed with the turnout and with the organization of the whole thing. Everyone there was having a great time, and it's one of those things that I think really builds community. What community means. So I was very impressed by that. Secondly, in terms of public records request, I have to do a little bit of math here. We have 10 active, but we have closed, let's see here, 473 records requests so far this year. And lastly, not only was June, I was prepared to give that update, June financials have been closed and posted to our website, but so has July. And it is August 8th, so that is some very impressive work done by our finance department, the likes of which have really never been done. When you're talking about millions of dollars, to get that balanced and posted in such a timely manner is very impressive. So Mr. McElravy and his whole entire staff do a great job there. And with that, if you voted today, thank you, and that's all I have.
Thank you. Oh, is there a need for executive session?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. Okay. Then do we have a motion for adjournment?
Motion.
Go ahead, Matt.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Okay, the meeting is officially adjourned at 9:18. Thank you.